November 11th, 2025, Veterans Day. Well, it looks like we've, of course, have got the Senate has passed the continuing resolution along with some other measures that were already passed by the House in order to end the shutdown. And so it looks like the Democrats have finally caved, and that will then have to go to the House. And of course, since it's a different bill than what the House already passed, that they'll have to get back and pass this Senate version that just occurred, which in large part is very similar to what was there before, except that the end date, I think, is at the end of January now, because we're almost through the period on the original continuing resolution. And while the Republicans have promised a vote in the Senate on their issue of the extending the extra emergency benefits that were done during COVID for the Obamacare program, there's no guarantee it will pass or that it would go through the House. So, at any rate, so that's it looks like a basic defeat of the Schumer strategy. 8 Democrats crossed the aisle to vote with the Republicans to do this. Of course, one Republican didn't vote for this, and that he voted with the Democrats, and that would be Rand Paul. I guess he just wants to stand out or something. But anyhow, he has some use, and that is that he's one of the people that vote to keep us in control of the Senate. So, and he has always is, well, whatever. He did okay on the COVID thing and Fauci. So he does have his utilities at some point. But the Democrats seem to be kind of in a disarray at the moment. And as I mentioned in my previous video, I didn't think that the off-year elections were that meaningful in and of themselves, because they pretty much went like we expected, except I would, as I mentioned, the situation with New Jersey was a little bit of a surprise. But now the Democrats are now are kind of in a frenzy, and some people are trying to push to get rid of Schumer as the minority leader, which would be kind of unfortunate because, after all, he is still working for UFO disclosure. And so, well, he's not been too successful at getting it done. But at any rate, so we'll have to see what's to come. If you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and you can also follow me on Rumble if you prefer. So the next challenge, of course, is getting it through the House, which, given the narrow majority there, I presume some Democrats will vote for it as well as most Republicans. With, of course, if Thomas Massey probably won't. We'll see on that one. And I don't know what Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to do, since she's kind of gone rogue lately as well. But at any rate, we have the prospect of, I guess they're going to probably will be back and ready to take it up on Wednesday, is what I've heard. That's the latest I've heard at this time. Because, I mean, all these people were not in session, so they got to get them back. And given how messed up air transport is, except for those that are close enough to drive, I think the rest of them, may be a bit of a struggle, but hopefully they can get there in time for something on Wednesday. And after that, the president can sign it and get the government back to work. And so that will be good. I don't know how much the disarray in the Democrats will go forward here. I mean, I like the fact that at least some moderates are finally pushing back against the radicals, and that's always good. The more they can be in disarray, the better. However, I still don't see this as being changing a whole lot about their prospects. Because it seems like there's enough people out there that are, whatever you want to call it, willing to vote for them, which I don't understand their popularity exactly, but they do seem to be always coming back. So I think they'll continue to be a problem. One thing I thought was kind of interesting that President Trump said, and he's talking about, and I was thinking this before, I never mentioned it, but I'm surprised at the air traffic controllers not coming to work just because of missing a couple of paychecks being delayed. I mean, it wasn't like they weren't going to only get the money. And remember, these are mostly 6-figure jobs, okay? And I mean, and I don't know, maybe the trainee people would be lower and that they might be more vulnerable, but still, I mean, how long does it take to get a job like that in today's environment? I mean, people are having trouble getting these kind of high quality jobs, as I understand it. There's all these college graduates that are not finding a job and so forth. And here they have a solid government job, you know, in high demand, and I mean, I can recall from years ago when I was out of work, the effort you're going into to getting back to being hired, and you're not getting paid then either. I just can't imagine people wouldn't show up and, find some way to fund it, credit cards, or maybe try to get a short-term loan from either friends, relatives, or from the bank. But what I mean, for 40 days, I mean, I don't. That looks kind of bad on their record. It seems to me like. Now, Trump's proposing was it a $10,000 bonus for those that did come to work, and so that will be. And a lot of those people worked a lot of free overtime, I guess, at least during that period. So that hopefully that'll happen. That they'll at least will reward those that did come to work, and maybe send a message in the future that for that sort of thing. Now, for the TSA officers, whatever you call them, the people that scan you they're not that highly paid really, and so although it's a solid job, I can see why that might be more likely. There you might find some moonlighting type things to make up for the lack of money. Of course, rent or mortgages have to be paid, and families need food. So, I understand, but it seems to me like that there was a better way than, particularly for the controllers, because they're coming back to a highly paid job, but with a lot of back benefits, I think. So, at any rate, so that's that, and it looks like I've often thought that what the ultimate political impact of this is. I think we're bound against the Democrats. As I said, whoever actually wins the battle, I think, is the winner somehow politically, because now it's kind of like, why did you put us through all this when you couldn't actually maintain it? You couldn't really get what you wanted, and the people still don't get what they want, what they were trying for, and yet you caused all this disruption to people, even people in the lower income brackets on SNAP and so forth. At least had fears, and I guess maybe missed a little bit of benefit in this whole process, a few days worth. So it doesn't seem to me that, plus all the people that had their travel plans disrupted. I think that this kind of makes the Democrats look bad here, and so we'll see how that goes. However, we're going to have some battles coming up. I notice that we're thinking along the lines I am, that this John Ossoff in Georgia may become a major target for a pickup, which may counterbalance some other seats which we might have some vulnerability in, particularly maybe North Carolina, because Tillis not running, and then you have the fact that they have a governor who seems to be able to continue to get elected. They're a Democrat, which I don't think he's a whole lot to write home about, but he's not probably as bad as some of them. Except that when he gets into the Senate, he will be as bad as all of them, I guarantee you. I don't believe he's going to turn into a John Fetterman type. So anyhow, but these other people, I think, are from, a lot of them from states that are more moderate, and some of them, I think, weren't even running for re-election. A couple of them anyhow. So I think that all led to what happened on that vote. So we can go forward from here and see kind of what will happen next. We get on to actually negotiating the rest of the budget, hopefully, and hopefully there won't be another shutdown at the end of January and into February. Let's hope that don't happen. Maybe the Democrats have learned their lesson there. We can hope. On the other hand, I don't know who they would end up picking for their new leader if they did oust Schumer. I doubt they will. It's unclear to me whether in any way Schumer let this happen, which he might have, and said, go ahead and do it, and we won't get too mad at you. Although the extreme liberals will. Now they're mad at him. I guess that's what they're suspecting. I don't know. Although it seemed like they ran the thing into the ground. If this had gone into Thanksgiving, I think it would have been a bigger boondoggle for them to deal with. So we'll have to kind of see what happens. Meanwhile, the new president of Syria is meeting with Trump, and a former terrorist turn friendly. We've took the $10 million bounty off his head, and now we're inviting him to the White House. So that's interesting. I I don't have a whole lot of regard for that, and I don't really think that the Assad, who is now in exile, is any more villainous really than the group he stood for. But as I understand, there was a lot of murdering going on when he took over in Syria too. So a lot of Alawites had to go into exile if they could get out of there in time, and so forth. Not that I'm an advocate of Assad by any means either. I'm just saying it's one bad thing after another. And and in fact, from the point of view of the Christians, I think Assad was relatively protective of Christians. I don't know how this ex-jihadi is going to behave. So far, I've not seen good things really, but I guess from a certain geopolitical sense, he will play ball with the U.S. in return for us supporting him. So anyhow, meanwhile, I guess looking over to the situation in the Ukraine war, Zelensky seems to be kind of getting a bit more and more erratic. Today he said that he wasn't afraid of Trump while everybody else was. I don't know what that is about. But we have, and it looks like the Russians continue to maintain this siege at Potrovsk, and they still have a significant number of Ukrainian troops kind of encircled there, and they're kind of squeezing them back into an area. But so far they're holding out; they're not surrendering yet. I don't know how that will end up. It doesn't look like they're going to escape. Meanwhile, all on the front, the Russians are pretty much advancing in most places. I think there's a few, again, occasional sporadic Ukrainian counterattacks, but overall it looks like the trend is in Russia's favor. And although the end of the conflict is nowhere in sight at the moment either, it's one of those sort of things. Russia is proceeding to basically try to knock out all the power plants in a major part of Ukraine in order to basically put everybody in the freezer for the winter. I mean, again, the Kyiv government doesn't really ultimately care that much about the fate of the people. It's all about them staying in power and getting money and so forth, I think. Whereas it looks to me like trying to negotiate a compromise with the Russians would be a much better strategy for them, but they apparently don't think so. So it goes on, and people suffer and people die. It's terrible. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on there. And although certain people I follow occasionally are really spun up about what's going on with this Venezuela deal, I still doubt we're going to actually invade Venezuela. Although I guess it's possible some airstrikes might be waged against some drug labs and stuff like that. It does look like the people that are motorboating it into the U.S. with the drug shipments are taking some pretty bad hits. You might say the war on drugs has turned into an actual war. Meanwhile, I understand that a heroic mayor in Mexico that stood up the cartels and said that they could do whatever they wanted to them, kill them or whatever, but he wasn't backing down. Well, apparently they killed him, tragically. And so it goes. And Mexico continues to be a narco state primarily. So anyhow, that's about it for now, and we can hope that we can finally finish up the budget in a more orderly fashion now. And I don't know if we're going to really get this $2,000 cash distribution for the poor and middle class or not. I don't know whether that's really going to happen, and if it does, what the exact criteria and who exactly gets it and who won't. It may be something like the $6,000 deduction for Social Security, which was prorated based on income. So we'll see how that all plays out. So all for this time. You can follow me on YouTube and Rumble. As always, I'll be posting it there. And of course, my social media accounts are posted in the description below as well. All for now.